So today we're very pleased to welcome a few guest speakers with us. My name is Koo Gek Cheng. I'm at the Institute of Asia Studies, Nottingham University, and we have the COVID-19 lecture series, Responding and Preparing for a New Normal. And today we have with us Dr. Rusaslina Idrus, an anthropologist at University of Malaya. And we have Shaq Koyok, who's an Orang Asli artist and activist, and Dr. Maysoon Mustafa, who's the Senior Manager Research Strategy from the Crops for the Future. So welcome and thanks for coming to tell us what has been going on. So very quickly, maybe Shaq, if you could tell us a bit about your involvement as an Orang Asli activist with regards to the project you're involved in to get aid or food aid to the Orang Asli communities.
The first idea to have to collect the donation to get the money actually come from climate emergency or Malaysian climate emergency organization, focusing on environmental issue, but they team up with me and other NGO like Kuasa, another environmental and non-government organization, and also Grimace art project. So we all team up together. We come up with this to run to get the funding to buy food for the indigenous people, especially who live in rural area. Also, those who doesn't get the food aid that is provided by the government. So we focusing on the Perak, Pahang, and Selangor because we actually have coordinate, also communicate with other NGO that run the similar aid funding for in the different area, like different states. For example, in Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang, on Johor.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're dealing with 3,000 families.
3,000 families, yeah.
At least, so this is because government Jakwa Orang Asli Department of Orang Asli, they only can provide for 30,000 families. And total family in the whole peninsula is 50,748. So we actually got support from the Jakwa to in terms of giving information about which village we need to cover, because they only covered certain villages because in terms of their fund they receive from the government, they cannot cover the whole villages, the whole family, and for Asli. So while we are doing the process of distributing the food, we face so many challenges, especially to get a permission from the government, so the authority as well as Department of Orang Asli, because in order to deliver the food, we need they only allow 3 people, 3 responsibility from in NGO to deliver the food. And at the same time, we're dealing with 7 villages in one day. So we end up have only 3 people who have to carry this, bring this food to the villages. Means the process very slow. To get permission also very slow. So we're dealing with the red tape since the beginning of the process. In terms of getting funding, we don't have problem because people are very generous to get into helping us until we get more than we need, and then we end up we adding more villages we need to cover. So we very happy that we got enough support on the financial.
Can I
But
just sorry?
logistically, we have challenges dealing with remote villages.
Can I just make a suggestion? Let's try you close your camera and see if your sound is clearer, because your sound is not very clear.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I think your sound, so it's quite delayed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, can you?
Yeah, it delay a little bit.
Does it sound?
Yeah, okay.
It sounds better. I think it sounds better.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, so there are problems delivering because they're only allowed to have 3 people, and then 3 people will have to send the food out to so many villages, and
Yes,
that's process.
yeah. It's a lot of families, and one village is like my village. We got 300 people. We got about 170 families, and they have the same. Some villages are quite far, and we're dealing with a roadblock. We almost have to go through to three roadblock at least to go through to the villages, not to go to the another villages. Just to go one to villages, we have to go through to 3 villages. Every time we go through roadblock, they always pull us off to the side of the road and check everything. We have to send show them documents. It takes so long. For example, one day we're sending one we're supposed to send to 7 villages in one day, but actually we only can manage to send it to three villages, because the process of sending to the roadblock and the red tape and the police and everything takes longer. That's actually create so much confusion between us and the Jaguar and the information that doesn't help when Jaguar give a wrong information to the villages, and then we end up miss one of the I think two villages. They actually waiting for us to arrive, but we have to go to different day, because and then sometimes Jaguar give them wrong information, said you won't get any food, but actually you won't get any food aid or medical aid, because some villages have need, like some villages they already receive from the corporate company. For example, in my village or my neighbor village, they receive only rice and bag of rice and oil. We providing about 10 items for family. Means we get food, we get medical, we get food and medical. That's our and we got 10 items altogether, and that create so much confusion between Jaguar and Orang Asli. And Orang Asli start adopting us, start angry with us, because they got jealous, because they never get
because some neighbors get different
of aid, but they don't receive enough. Exactly. That's it.
Okay. Let's. So we're also wondering, in your interactions with the different villages, have you come across any adaptive habits from the communities that could be shared with us? What?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I think it's I think in Orang Asli we quite self-sustained, and most of our Orang Asli like to live near the jungle, and I saw Orang who have their own communal garden. I mean, they love to have a fresh vegetable from their garden.
Sorry, can you?
They can consume every day, because that's our tradition. Sorry.
So just to clarify, because we can't quite hear you, they are planting their own gardens, right? Because they have an area close to the forest, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So they're growing their own food.
yeah, yes, yes, correct. Yeah, but this is only happen near my village, because my village we still have a jungle, and we still have uh, the villagers still adopting that practice, like have their own garden. But certain villages they don't have the communal garden. I noticed that, and because every time I call this the villagers, I will ask them what they do, if they what they need, and then some villagers they don't have it, nothing, they don't plant anything, you know. This because these villages live in a plantation owned by the different companies. Sometimes they don't own that land, they only been allowed because I think for some reason they sold that land to the big company like Sindabi and other big company. So I find a way how to solve that problem by contacting a big company like Sindabi to responsible for these villages, like the memory in the Pulau Keri area, because Pulau Keri is not just one villages. They have 7 villages in there. So I told them we don't have any funding to give the food aid for these villages, but uh, can you uh, uh, send them some aid? And after a while, I don't get receive anything, so I blast out my social media, tell them you should responsible for the villages to live inside your plantation. So, and day after, a day later, then I get some messages that they will send some food aid to the village. So those I managed to find out way to get the big corporation like Gamuda, Sandabi to take the social responsibility to the villagers to live nearby to their business.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Lynn, do you have anything to add? You got to turn your mic on.
Yes, similar to Shaq, I've also been hearing from some of the villagers how some are retreating back to their forested or orchard area, because a lot of people, when they have orchard, they also have a small hut that they set up. And so they've gone back to stay there because then they have more access to natural resources that surround them. They also feel safer. So we've heard reports of that, and also some villages are also beginning to go back to growing what they call tanaman kontan, like subsistence farming, planting things like tapioca, sweet potatoes, things that they can grow quickly around their house, which doesn't require as much space. Some are starting to grow vegetables and things like that. These are things they used to do, but sometimes because they're involved in work outside the village, they've not taken up this practice for a little while, so they're starting to relearn some of these older ways of growing crops near their house.
You're muted.
No, we can't hear you.
No. So my next question is really about what are the strategies to prepare for a new normal, because we have this worry about not getting food aid and having social distancing. So what can Orang Asli do to deal with this new normal situation?
Well, I think just answer that, or definitely. Or anybody else on the add?
Well, Shaq, go ahead.
Okay. I think, like the said earlier, by adopting the old practice like self-sustained vegetable garden and living near the forest also give them another idea that the natural environment is very important for Orang Asli, not just for self-survival, but also to practice them. At the moment, so many young generation, especially Orang Asli generation, they, they don't practice they don't practice their culture anymore, like harvesting something from the jungle. They don't even know how which plant to eat in the jungle anymore. So they are so lost their uh, sense of growing something in the garden, because this is only practiced by older generation. You see, I think that's a I can advise to the villagers to do it, because this I think I'm sure this is not the only um, uh, moment that we have to deal with the virus. I'm sure this also will give another lesson for us to value the food that we eat every day. Is actually also give what's it called, appreciation a lot more to the people who give us the food. Example, farmers, small farmers, and whoever they put food on the table for us in the city.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been talking about the new normal, and in some ways I feel a bit uncomfortable with the term new normal, because I think for some people it just means adapting to the new challenges and limitations. But really what we need to do is really change our paradigm of thinking about development and thinking about a relationship to the environment. And in a lot of ways, the indigenous people have led in this call for many years already, for decades. They've been talking about more sustainable living. They would have been talking about the importance of forests, for clean air, but also for food security. They've been talking about, the importance of clean water. So they've been talking a lot about the importance of the environment and the balance of living between human and the environment for many, many years. And, for a long time, people just took that as, being anti-development. When indigenous people protest against these kinds of mega development, they're told that they're anti-development, and people who support them are told that they're being romanticizing, this indigenous cause. But actually now we're seeing it. I mean, we hear now, and we understand now how important the environment is, and how we really need to fundamentally shift the way we think about development and growth. I think that's sort of an important lesson in this moment. And for the Orang Asli, I think we as Shaq mentioned, the forest has provided food security for those who are able to have access to intact forests. They're able to still be able to get resources from the forest, or if they have home gardens. But for those who are in more urban spaces or in semi-urban spaces where their land have been taken away, they're at the worst position right now, because they don't have that security from having land around them.
Mm-hmm. I think we have 2 more minutes to kind of wrap up on it.
Okay. Maybe we could also, so what do you see are ways or strategies to prepare with regards, I guess, to food security? I guess not just vegetable gardens.
Shall I add to that?
Yeah.
All right. I think we need to create a new curriculum and teaching the younger generation about the sustainable life, in a way what indigenous people do, and indigenous people practice for many generations. Because in a way we need to have that in us, because as Dr. Lin mentioned earlier, because development become a main enemy for indigenous people, because they're always challenging us to adopt the so-called living in modern life, and then forget their tradition and stuff. And actually, I think the only way for us to move to the future is by teaching our children, our younger children, about how indigenous people manage to use the nature as a part of their friends, as a part of their blood, as a part of their family, because this has been practiced for many generations. Because, and for example, me and my parents will tell us every time we go to the jungle, we cannot take more than we need. That's simple thing, that's a simple. I think that is the only sustainable that I think is really tangible, really doable for anybody. I think because now we still we are talking about sustainable life and sustainable future, but what actually the real effort we can do? I mean, what actually really thing that we need to do? Because so far I've seen so many conferences, so many talk, people just talking, even the big development company using that term of sustainable as to manipulate the us and to build their building, and then even at the same time they destroy the nature. I think we need to do more action than just talk, because I've been to many conferences. They never come up with any action plan whatsoever. All they need just look good in the newspaper or in the picture for their just free publicity, but no action. At the moment, I was thinking the only thing we need to do is just use some material for the children to learn something about indigenous people, because when I got my medical award, I went to Australia and New Zealand. I learned a lot about how they managed to use the indigenous knowledge in part of their education system. And you see the success they have now in New Zealand and Australia. But the indigenous has been part in the society, without excluding from. They don't have any gap anymore. They're part of the society, but they are also adopting the indigenous people way of life. And for the future.
Can I ask, so you mean when you say curriculum change, it's not just about the community learning centers, right? It's more than that. It's actually changing mainstream education, because it's actually the mainstream that has racism towards Orang Asli children and what you see in some of these right?
Exactly. Okay. The way forward is education, because at the moment we educated enough, we know how to deal, we know among us, we know exactly what we are self-conscious, but the younger children are the one who will determine our future.
Okay. So Lynn, do you have any anything to add?
Yeah, I think maybe this is a good moment for us, as Shaq was saying, that, previously Orang Asli have been looked down upon as being backwards because they, want to hold on to some of their traditional livelihoods, and, their preference to maybe stay closer to the forest or still practice the traditional way of life is seen as, not modern or rejecting modernity. But now I think maybe there's a greater appreciation now how important indigenous knowledge is, being, in relation to, relationship to the environment. Also, more specifically, we're talking about food security now. The kind of traditional knowledge on food sources, on medicinal plants, and how to plan, how to ensure that things are sustainable. These are, knowledge that's already within the community, but yeah, it is being lost in some ways as well. I was just talking to someone who grew up, he went to residential school, and so he didn't grow up in the village and learn how to grow things, and he said he's now having to relearn a lot of this, how to grow sweet potato, how to grow tapioca, how to identify what plants you can eat. So he's just using this time to also learn again, all these skills and all this knowledge that is within the community. But that's why it's important to continue the knowledge exchange and learning within the community. And also, I think this is a good moment to also educate the larger community. The indigenous people have always talked about the forest as their grocery store, and I think it's very hard for urbanites to imagine this. But I think at this moment, as we're all trying to grow our own tauge at home, we might appreciate it, right? So I think this is an opportunity also to educate like the larger mass, the larger public, the importance of the forest and growing your own food and traditional knowledge related to that.
I guess one other thing I'd like to add too is that development is not the antithesis, because in some cases, like I was talking to Lily, who's at the Center for Orang Asli Concerns, and she says that people think that we want to reject development. She said, well, we don't. We want the housing, we want the education, but it has to be a balance. It's not as if. So I think that fundamentally we have to redefine development to favor us, right? To favor a sustainable means of living and holding a society that has existed for many centuries, and to define that the kind of negative aspects of development that we have been fighting against is really capitalism or the sort of profit, which is not sustainable, like non-sustainable systems of being.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I teach a class on gender and development, and we use Amartya Sen's development as freedom as a framework, and we look at development as expanding, human capabilities, where development is linked to freedom, to be able to live your way of life, to choose, how you live. So it's not about one or the other, but really rethinking our paradigm, what development is to us. So it's not just about economic growth, which what we tend to think about development in terms of GDPs, in terms of highways, in terms of tall buildings, but we need to now think about development in a much more broader, more holistic, more inclusive way.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank all our speakers. And just to let you know, there will be other events that we're also organizing for these series. Thank you, Shaq. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Listen.
Thank you. Bye.